So it's at least 18 months of, solid research and
Oh, wow.
reviewing and writing. It's one of my longer researched pieces.
Walk me through your process. Welcome to the podcast. So excited about this episode. We have on, what a great guest, the winner for Best TV Pilot from this year's Script Summit, Vera C. Vera, thanks for being on with us.
Thank you.
So great. So the name of the pilot is Aftermath. And before we kind of dive into your award-winning script, which that has to feel pretty good, let's hear a little bit about you, your career so far of screenwriting, and what kind of led to you writing this pilot.
Okay. Well, I mean, a little bit about me. I'm originally from Montreal, but I reside now in Toronto. Canadian-based writer. In terms of my career, it's not necessarily been completely about art from the very beginning. I very much am someone who has started very much in a business career. And from the very beginning, I've always loved art. I've loved photography, painting, more as a young kid. And then eventually life kind of took me in another direction. I ended up, doing a bachelor's in the humanities, and I have my MBA. And so what happened later on is, sometimes you have those years that are really, really tough. There was that one year in my life where I had family that was just uh, family was sort of passing away, major issues surrounding, like I got into a huge car accident. It was just, and
Mm.
having to go to physio. And just with all these things happening, I was just wondering with myself just how do I feel a little less broken? How do I mend sort of my spirit and all that? And I mean, it didn't start immediately into screenwriting. It was just me taking a lot of walks, getting back to basics, getting back to nature, and always bringing along just a notebook. Anybody who's a writer knows you have an obsession with a notebook. I have at least 40 at home,
That's so
leather
true.
bound, non-leather bound, just every time you go to the store, oh, I need this. No, you don't. But the reality is I just sort of doodle, and from there it's just one day I just wrote. And you know what, I said I want to learn about this, I want to learn about the craft. So I started taking night courses, started taking weekend courses, and just really getting that to fit into my life. And I never sort of looked back. And from there I wrote a feature, went into short film making. So I've done a short film, produced a short film recently, which I'm really, really proud of. And I'm going to be producing one in the fall of this year as well. And so that's sort of the career path, right?
I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So writing from pain and tragedy, I always mention how that can be so cathartic, but it also allows you to write towards those kind of universal emotional truths. And those are the stories that resonate with people. So I can see how you kind of finding your voice as a writer and working through that pain can be reflected in a script that people would love. And I can see why it brought us here. So can you tell me about Aftermath and what kind of brought that about?
So Aftermath, the story of that, it started off as I'd always wanted to do some sort of serialized a story about a cool Canadian case. And it actually started off not anything to do with crime, but rather, just a sort of civil case around two brothers and dealing sort of real estate issues. But then as I worked through it, and I'd have to say, working through it through writers groups and things like that, I start to say, there's some really, really cool stories out here. And one of the things that baffles me very often is I don't think we as Canadians get to, we don't do the dramatization of some of our stories. There's a
Mm,
million documentaries. I've seen them all and they're exquisite work, but I don't know that we're dramatizing some of this stuff. And
interesting.
when I saw, the opportunity to take a look at this story, and I thought, oh my God, this is really cool. So it was inspired by a true crime story in the country. I've fictionalized it enough with sort of with this story here in terms of aftermath. But this story and what draws me to that is I really, really love the fact that I can use this family and this case as a microcosm, really, to look at some of the bigger themes and aspects of humanity, and particularly looking at how we relate to truth, how we relate to judgment,
Wow.
how, if we decide to not sort of pursue the truth, or if we decide we're going to be judgmental, how that can go awfully wrong. And we just get to go through the drama of this family in this particular case, which is a crazy case. I mean, the case in and of itself is about one brother, who's sort of looking to seek his exoneration. But what is the crime? The crime is he was convicted of murdering his other brother's kid. How does that create the dynamic and just all these complex emotions just start to come out between that family? So for me, first and foremost, I absolutely loved the fact that we have so many cool stories in Canada, so many cool crime stories, and I just felt like it was untapped. So I said, all right, let's do it. Let's use the imagination.
I want to dive into that some more, but before I do, can you hit me with a log line for Aftermath?
Yes, I can. So the log line is: the lives of two estranged brothers collide, and when one brother, accused of a brutal murder, seeks to overturn his conviction.
So I really like this idea of related to truth, and I don't want to hop into too much politics, but being an American and having recently seen and noticed so much debate on truth, alternative truths, um, these cultures based around fabrications or these bubbles that people have where they don't get access to other facts that can lead to truths is really fascinating. Seeing this issue, especially how it's kind of bred through social media, and really seeing how social media is made to connect us, but instead it's kind of connected us into smaller, closed off groups, which I think is so fascinating. So,
Yeah.
being someone in Canada, is this something that you started noticing and you're like, this is something that I need to kind of discuss and
I
infuse into a story?
I certainly notice it here. We're not immune, right? It's you, but you'll see it and sort of go maybe in the other direction. What I've
Mm,
noticed personally is almost this refusal to dialogue. It's
interesting.
it's interesting to me in that you can have another opinion, certainly, but
Yeah,
it's almost like it's frowned upon if your opinion doesn't match what everyone else thinks should be
right.
should be everyone's opinion type thing. And maybe it's not necessarily just a Canadian thing. I it probably is around the world as well, right? It's, for me, the aspect that I really want to look at is, can we, in our current reality, what's our relationship with truth? Can we
Yeah.
accept what is? Can we not only accept it, when we're taking this back to this family, and this brother is seeking his exoneration? What if he's exonerated? Can the family not only accept the truth, but can they forgive him? Right?
Wow.
Why do we like to judge others? Why are we in? And I feel years ago, it didn't feel like people were so judgmental. And now it's you can be a lot more judgmental, and I mean, people's careers go out the drain, just with one thing
Yeah.
that they said 15 years ago. So it was really, really interesting to get to that aspect and to try to tease out and have all these different perspectives through the different family members. And I think for me, what was even more interesting is it's not just how they feel, but the potential outcomes to this series, right?
Yeah.
um and the potential outcome and what that means for broader society. Can we accept it? Will we? Would we rather judge because it makes us feel better as opposed to sitting with what is? It's very philosophical, I guess, but it's something that I think we don't get enough of in terms of like just sitting with those thoughts. And for me, I loved this script and loved this story because it explores a lot of that.
I mean, I could see why the judges picked it as an award-winning script, because there is so much depth there to mine. I mean, just even looking at, like you said, somebody said something 12 years ago, and then, cancel culture or their job fires them, or whatever the ramifications are of something they said. Um, is that one thing I've noticed is it's like people don't realize that someone can evolve beyond
Hmm.
something they said 12 years ago. I mean, 45 years old. I've been there. I've said a lot of dumb stuff that I regret. And you know, am pray I'm not as ignorant as I used to be. But I used to be very myopic in my viewpoints. And, look at stuff that I've said in the past cringeworthy. But I've grown beyond it, because that's part of human development. And so to hold somebody accountable for something they said in the past, yeah, sure, hold them accountable, but listen to them. Have they grown? Have they
Yeah.
become a different person? Or if they're the same person, okay, then we have a problem. But I feel like
Yeah.
that is all kinds of stuff that you can really explore in your story, which makes me think like, yeah, this has legs, which is pretty awesome. Um, Aftermath, uh, have you kind of sketched out further seasons? I mean, I don't want you to spoil. I'm just curious.
I've sketched out a full season one. I've sketched out potentially because when I first thought of this, I thought limited series. This could be
Limited
a really
series? Yeah,
good
that would make sense to me. Sure.
beginning and end. And but then I kept thinking, there's a lot of cool stories just in the criminal space, in Canada. And I thought, why not make it a series, but make it kind of an anthology? Every season you kind of see something new.
Oh, that's cool.
You could
I
do that.
like that idea.
Yeah, I loved it too. And I said, just make it and then you can have a different cast of characters
Yeah.
and come in all the time. And I thought that's a really cool way to sort of give life to really, really interesting topics, and interesting people.
And
Um,
that would allow you to explore the other really cool stories in
yeah,
Canada that you're discussing, that you have a passion for. And so I think an anthology, it makes total sense to me. I kind of think of like the podcast that became a TV show, Dr. Death. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
yes, I,
same type of thing, right? Each season is a different Dr. Death, and all true stories. And so I could definitely see Aftermath taking a route like that, and finding a lot of success. I think that's so cool.
yeah, I love that part and that idea. And I mean, there's just so many ways you can cut and slice this in the sense that, there's this piece, there's the anthology. You can, create a podcast around that
Yeah.
that sort of analyzes every sort of part of the story. I just fell in love with it, and it has been a labor of love. This is not something that's come about quickly. It's one of the longer scripts that I've taken in terms of doing because there's such an immense amount of, even though it's fictitious, you still need to understand things like the actual criminal system in that particular area, what that looks like in terms of um, just the legal requirements, how things can work, the mechanics, to really plot that into the story. So it's at least 18 months of, solid research and
Oh, wow.
reviewing and writing. It's one of my longer researched pieces, that's for
Walk
sure.
me. All right. So this is awesome. I love the fact that you've been working on it that long, because that tells me, all right, this thing is solid. So walk me, if you're willing to, walk me through your process. I mean, are you throwing stuff on a wall with string like a crazy person? Are you, just outlining? Are you doing your traveling notebook journal thing? Like, what is your process for developing this over a year and a half?
Yeah, so my process for something like this, at first I do research. I just Google, start looking at, well, here's what I'm thinking, see what comes up, and then just sort of get information in that sort of way, in that
Yeah.
sense. And then eventually what happens is, if I really find a story that I really, really like, depending on, well, for this story specifically, there's a lot of data mining and getting data and information. So that involves going to either your library or going through, like, how they have databases. Well, here we have databases for provincial documents and court cases
Okay.
and things like that. So there's a lot of pulling records. There's a lot of reading, analyses,
That's awesome.
judgments and reasonings. So I go through that process. I have to say I probably went over maybe at least 1,000 pages just in documents of the different kinds of, just based on the legal process, the legal transcripts, looking at as well the decisions, because this case occurred, it took years for this to sort of happen. And so with that comes a lot of information. And so it's going through those dockets and getting that information. And that's the primary research that I do. It's not just secondary research based on internet and different commentaries. So that's the start for me in terms of looking at
I
different.
gotta bump in because you did it right. I mean, I just want everybody who's listening to this to be like, this is what it takes to get an award-winning script. This amount of dedication, this amount of passion, this amount of intelligence and research. I mean, this is how you did it. It's absolutely fascinating. Um, uh, to hear you say this, because it's my process. I do the same thing. Like I love research. Like I love screenwriting, but I embarrassingly love research. I love finding experts in the fields and tricking my way into their office with a free lunch so I could sit down for an hour and just grill
Yeah,
these people. I love going to a library and finding books, so like I just think it's so awesome, and it's just, yeah, for anybody out there who is doing this, that's how you get a great script, and it is validating. So um and this script, I mean, you with getting the award for Script Summit, it comes with a Coverfly development package, which Coverfly is huge in the indie screenwriting community, and they're helping you right now try and get more exposure in the field, right?
yeah, definitely. Definitely. I spoke with a few of their with some of those individuals within Coverfly, their business coordinator, as well as connected with, I believe, one of their VPs. So
That's
it's,
awesome.
it's awesome to, be able to just connect. And I mean, they have the level of insight that other people don't, in terms of understanding
Yeah.
what is being looked for, how you present yourself, how you put together a portfolio to put yourself in the best light, and all of that. So it's been a really great experience thus far.
I mean, that's been one of the goals of when I started Script Summit, was to find ways to create opportunity for writers, and partnering with Coverfly is one of the best things we've done, because it's helped us to be able to really get you guys out there as winners. And then, Inktip came in as well, and Inktip is a great partner, so they let you um get the pro package where you can have your script out there for producers to see and get opportunity like that. So it's just super awesome. We're so happy to have them on as well. And then of course, Writer Duet, which is what I use actually to write. I know everybody likes other software, but I love Writer Duet. So I think who we have as sponsors is pretty awesome, and it's really helped Script Summit really help make a difference for people. So I just want to thank you for trusting Script Summit.
Oh no, I'm so happy. And every single time, so you know how Script Summit and other competitions, they'll go through like cover fly, and it'll
Yeah,
be the day you get quarterfinal, and be like, oh,
yeah,
I got the quarterfinal, and you just get excited.
yeah.
So you wait to hear that notification. No, it's been a great experience, honestly.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Vera, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out to you and talk to you about Aftermath?
If they want to reach out to me, I do have my own company where I do short films, and that's where I produce short film under.
Okay.
Bluebird Films, I'm on Instagram. So at BLUBYRDFILMS.